Welcome back to this new episode in emotional health. In the last episode, we had seen how the emotional disturbance affects our functioning and our interpersonal relationship. Now, when we don't want these interpersonal conflicts, we don't express our disturbance, we suppress them. But that suppressed emotion is not going to remain quiet. It is going to disrupt the functioning of your body and the mind. When the emotional disturbance is of a mild intensity, at the physical level, we experience various aches and pains, like say headache, backache, joint pains, or indigestion in the form of acidity, constipation, or diarrhea, tiredness. Sometimes there's also sexual dysfunction. At the mental level, it will produce mental dysfunctioning in the form of sleeplessness or lack of appetite or lack of concentration, which leads to forgetfulness. Then there is difficulty in making decisions. There is mental tiredness. This is the yellow signal. If we don't heed it and the intensity of the emotional disturbances increases, now appears the orange signal. At the physical level, it manifests in the form of psychosomatic diseases like high blood pressure, diabetes, peptic ulcer, bronchial asthma, migraine, irritable bowel syndrome, and whatnot. At the mental level, it produces neurotic disorders like anxiety, depression, phobia, hysteria, etc. You don't still heed it, and if it reaches severe level, physically it can cause even death. You might have heard of people when they hear some shocking news, they die on the spot. Why? Because the physiological changes have occurred so much that the organism cannot survive. At mental level, it can produce brief reactive psychosis.
What is brief reactive psychosis?
This is a temporary insanity which is caused because of severe stress. It doesn't last for more than 15 days and recovers on its own. This is a reactive psychosis. Most of the psychoses are not reactive. They are caused because of neurotransmitter imbalance and therefore are more endogenous rather than being exogenous. So, these disturbances affect our body and mind. How do these psychosomatic diseases arise? Well, actually the mechanism was a survival mechanism, a gift of nature for our protection. Like when the primitive man was living in wilderness, he met all sorts of dangers, like say a wild animal. How did he deal with the situation? Either by fight or flight. If he found that the animal was small, he would fight it and kill it. But if he found that no, I'll be killed by the animal, then he took to his heels and ran away to safety. Now for both the processes, fight and flight, he needed a lot of physical energy. So how did he get that energy? That because of the emotional reaction of anger or anxiety, there were a lot of physiological changes produced in the body that would enable him to carry out these processes. Like say he needed more oxygen, so the breathing rate would go up. He needed more glucose to act as fuel. So from liver and other organs, glucose was poured into the bloodstream. Now this oxygen and glucose had to be transported to all parts of the body. Who did that? Heart. So the heart will beat fast. That's why you get palpitations. And also it will beat more forcefully. So the blood pressure goes up. He needed more light, so the pupils of the eyes would dilate. The mouth would go dry. The intestinal motility can increase or decrease, and there would be goose pimples. Now with these changes in the body, he could either fight with the animal and kill it, or run away to safety. And once the process was over, those physiological changes would come back to the baseline level. Again, there was another danger, another arousal, again it was utilized, it came down. This is what was going on. But in today's modern civilized world, we don't deal with problems by fight and flight. Like say the boss calls a subordinate and fires him. Because of that firing, the subordinate is boiling mad. And therefore the same physiological changes which I mentioned earlier would arise. Now, can he wrestle with the boss? Or can he just run away from there?
No.
He can do neither. So what happens to those physiological changes? They are not utilized. So they take longer time to come down. And before they reach the baseline, there's another firing. This time from the boss at home. Again not utilized. So again it takes time to come down. And the third and the fourth. And ultimately what happens? In due course, these changes don't touch baseline. So now, if the blood pressure remains persistently high, it will lead to essential hypertension, that is high blood pressure. If the breathing rate remains persistently high, it will lead to bronchial asthma. If the blood sugar remains high, it will lead to diabetes. If the muscle tension remains high, it will lead to arthritis. So this is how we invite these psychosomatic diseases unknowingly. Mind you, it doesn't happen overnight. That happens only in Hindi films. That the heroine elopes with the hero and the father of that heroine has a heart attack next day. Not so fast. It takes 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years to develop. And we become aware of it only when the disease arises. And then what do? We rush to the doctor. The doctor examines you and tells you have got high blood pressure, take this medicine. With that antihypertensive pill, your blood pressure normalizes. You are happy, the doctor is happy. But there is really nothing to be happy about. Because what has he done? He has only blocked the manifestation. So he has given you a relief, but not a cure. Like say when you have fever and you take paracetamol, the fever comes down. But that's a relief. When is the cure? When you give the appropriate antibiotic to kill the germs causing the fever. So what is the germ in the psychosomatic disease? The distress. Have you removed that? No. So now what will happen? Now there will be syndrome shift. So what is syndrome shift? Say you have a air pillow and you press it on one side, what will happen? It will bulge on the other side. Now you press from there, it will bulge from the third side. So similarly here, you have suppressed the high blood pressure with medicines. What will happen? Out comes diabetes. The doctor assures you, no problem, I have got anti-diabetic drugs also. You suppress that, out comes ulcer. Suppress that, out comes asthma. So this is called syndrome shift. The disease has not gone. It has only changed its form.
So how did the disease go?
Remove the distress, the root cause. And we don't do that. And that's why we find in many elderly people, they are on antihypertensive, anti-diabetic, anti-asthmatic, anti-arthritic, anti-ulcer, all the drugs are there. Because they have collected all these illnesses. So, I'm not saying not to take these medicines. The treatment should start with it but not end with it. This has to be followed up by removing the distress. So what are these distress relief measures? The most important is relaxation. You must have heard of many relaxing exercises like say Shavasana or Yog Nidra or hypnosis or Jacobson muscle relaxation technique. All this is to neutralize the distress. There is another method, ventilation. We say that you should have a good friend to whom you can open your heart out to. Unload your emotional disturbances. But today we don't know what the friend is going to do with the material you divulge. So one of my clients used to talk it out to the tape recorder, hear it once and then erase it. Another client used to write a stinking letter to the person who offended him, did not dare to post it, would read it once and then tear it off. In Reader's Digest, there was an article where it was stated that when you are upset, go to your room, close the doors and window and shout. Take a pillow and bash it up. Or take a newspaper, wrap it and smash it. All these are ways of ventilation.
But does it work, this ventilation?
Yes, it does give you enough relief because you have vent out all your pent up emotions. So you feel light.
So any which way you can do it, you can just do it. Like
Yes.
Any which way.
Yes, sure. In Japan, they have the rubber statues of the top bosses in the compound.
Yes.
And any employee who's angry can go and bash it up. We still don't have it here because the boss will put CCTV and see who comes here. So, of course, a third method is also there, medication. The most widely prescribed medicines in the world today are alprazolam, an anti-anxiety drug, fluoxetine, an antidepressant drug. Gives you the idea of how prevalent the distress is. And of course, some people have their own medicines. They are under the influence of those intoxicants, but once the effect wears off, they are back to square one. Another way to neutralize the distress is by engaging in your favorite activities. Something that gives you pleasure. Like say,
Hobbies.
beg your pardon?
Hobbies.
Hobbies. Like say, somebody who likes music, when upset will go and listen to music. Or somebody will go for a long walk. Somebody will go for shopping. Somebody will go for a long drive. Or somebody would read a book. So this is to engage in activity which produces pleasure and therefore neutralize the distress.
Aren't we suppressing the distress?
We are neutralizing the distress. Because there was a distressful negative emotion, we have produced another positive one to neutralize it.
Okay.
But then it can backfire. Like one of my clients was telling me that in another stress management program, it was suggested to him to engage in what he liked. He liked eating. And he ate and became fat. So these are measures that help to remove the distress temporarily. But they are temporary. It's something like, say, you have a tank full of water and you want to empty it. You open the tap, it gets emptied. But if you have not closed the inlet, then it's going to get filled up again. Again, you need to empty the tank by opening the tap. So these measures are like opening the tap. If you want a more permanent solution, we have to
Address the root
plug
cause.
the inlet. And what is the inlet? We believe it is the other people in the environment who are making us upset. And therefore, we want them to improve for our benefit. Like one of my friend went to listen to Murari Bapu. Now Murari Bapu has the habit that at the end of the discourse, he asks people to give up some vices. That if you are drinking alcohol, give it up. If you are smoking, give up smoking. This friend of mine did not have any such vices. So he thought, what will I give up? He thought and said, yes, I get angry very easily. So I'll give up my anger. That evening he came home, called his wife and children together and said, look here, I have taken a vow not to get angry. So you people better behave. So we want others to behave for our benefit. That's not possible. So in the next session, we'll see what that real inlet is, which makes us get upset, making us pay a heavy price for it.